I have a photo of my brother when he was 4 days old. I'm cradling him in my arms on top of my parents' black and white, geometrically patterned bedspread. It's one of my favorite photos. After my sister was born, my parents hadn't been able to have children for almost 10 years, so Bryce's birth was momentous. Almost from the start, he was charming. He had this wide, impish grin, and my mother would say, "Bryce, he's going to do great things. He's got the brains, the work ethic, the brawn." When Bryce was 13, he started drinking. In my family, drinking wasn't just about experimentation. No one in my family drank. What began as acting out, though, quickly became a salve for pain, anxiety, and depression. Bryce didn't quite feel like he could show up. Drinking and drugs gave him the illusion he could. In his late teens, my mother intervened, and Bryce got clean. He graduated from college, he received his MBA, he worked hard, he fell in love, he was engaged to be married, up, and then his heart was broken. And the demons that he'd kept at bay for more than a decade began to slither back in. And late last year, Bryce took his life. At first, I was mad. How could he do this? Then I was scared. We have the same genetic code. Because anger and fear mask sadness, I eventually came to understand I was sad. Sad that his life was so painful. Sad for what might have been and won't be. Winston Churchill's "never, never, never, never give up" has rallied me for years. My brother's suicide has made these words that much more poignant. But it's also been cause for self-examination. I don't give up, but do I show up? Maybe it's not alcohol, but do I create the illusion that I've shown up when I haven't? 3 years ago, I was about to send the first draft of my book off to the publisher when I received a link from a friend for a contest sponsored by Oprah. The prize was your own talk show. Immediately, I was thrilled by that giddy fear I feel when I know I've got to take something on. More immediately, ASAP immediately, I began to explain to myself why this audition was a no-go. I would have to take a day off of work, drive from Boston to New Jersey, fill out a lengthy application, get up at 3 in the morning to be one of the first 500 people in line, and I would have to subject myself to the humiliation of what was effectively a cattle call in a Kohl's parking lot. Meanwhile, one of my friends, childhood friends who I was telling all of this to, said, "Isn't it ironic that you are writing a book daring people to dream, and you won't?" Well, that's all it took, because I don't give up. I didn't win my own talk show. I didn't even make it past the first cut. I was embarrassed, deflated, but then I recovered because there was sadness, but there were no regrets. I'd suited up, I'd shown up, I'd taken my dream on, and until a few months ago, the Oprah story ended there. But as I've tried to make meaning of my brother's life and death, I've wondered, did I really show up? Did I really take my dream on? Not in the "here I am, therefore I deserve" entitled sort of a way, but I'm physically here, emotionally engaged. I've drawn down on my intellectual stores. I've put in the work. As I stood in the Kohl's parking lot, was I physically there? Check. I'd even spent a lot of time figuring out exactly what I was going to wear. Was I emotionally engaged? Check. Having a talk show would inspire people to dream. Had I put in the work? Check again. I'd hired a graphic designer to help me get the look and feel of my dossier just right. But there's one thing I didn't do. I didn't prepare an elevator pitch. After all that rain and snow and sleet, I was going to get 30 seconds, and I had no idea what I was going to say. As I'm sitting around the table underneath one of those white outdoor canopies, I start scribbling out some talking points. When it's my turn to speak, I don't stumble. Maybe that would have been better. Underdogs can be pretty endearing, but no. I did something much worse. Being a perfectionist, I became note-dependent, my affect flat, my voice monotone. Like a snail into a shell, there was nothing that I said that would inspire people to dream. I had shown up, but not quite. Check, mate. Do I dare? Do I dare? Do I dare disturb the universe, said T.S. Eliot. Do you dare disturb the universe? Do you dare show up to your dream? I say yes to that dream. 25 years ago, my husband and I arrived in New York so he could pursue his PhD. I was terrified. So many people, such tall buildings, horror stories about crime and drugs. For the first week, I wouldn't go anywhere by myself. But eventually, I had to go out and look for a job. We were in New York. I wanted to work on Wall Street, but as a music major, I'd never set foot in an accounting, finance, or any type of business course. So I started as a secretary. After 3 hard years, a boss who believed in me, I eventually moved up from secretary to investment banker, and then at one point, an award-winning equity analyst. So when I wrote my book, Dare, Dream, Do, I could legitimately say I had shown up to my career. But then I made the wonderfully illogical leap that if you put yourself into a new situation like New York, you'll start to dream. A friend who read an early draft of my manuscript said, "Whitney, I don't think you can say it's dream or don't eat. Some people are just trying to survive. Plenty of people never give up, but they're not really pursuing their dreams either." And you know what? She was right. You can never give up without ever dreaming. But you can't show up without, you can't ever dream. And I mean dream as a verb unless you show up. Dreaming is about showing up. In my early 20s, I worked as a volunteer missionary in Uruguay for 18 months. It was common practice among missionaries to pray that we'd find people who were interested in what we had to say. Usually those prayers were pretty fervent. We were young, thousands of miles away from home, in a foreign country. People often ignored us or slammed doors in our faces. Several months into my mission, one of our leaders, a Dutchman by the name of Jacob de Jager, said, "Instead of praying to find people, pray that they'll find you." Decades later, those words are even more compelling. Each of us is on a mission to accomplish something important in life. All of us are ignored. All of us have doors slammed in our faces. Do we keep showing up so that our dreams can find us? We teach what we need to learn. We write what we need to know, said Gloria Steinem. As I consider everything I've written over the last few years, from Disrupt Yourself to Dare, Dream, Do, I realize that I've been circling around what I need to learn about showing up. When I went to Wall Street, I dared to disturb the universe. I dared to dream big dreams about who and what I could become. That was showing up, and I felt Velveteen Rabbit real. Earlier this year, I poured myself into compiling a 40 over 40 list with Christina Valletta because we wanted to honor this sometimes invisible cohort of women who are taking their dreams on. When we show up, we sometimes open ourselves to disappointment and failure. Recently, I was defrauded on a business deal, and I had a decision to make. Was I only going to be the victim, or would I bear some responsibility and stand my ground? Being a victim, it's a pretty seductive plot line. But as I've gradually learned to show up, be present in, more fully responsible for my story, I feel more powerful and even hopeful, despite setbacks and challenges. But still, I wrestle. Late last year, there was a professional opportunity that I really wanted, and I didn't get, I think in part because I didn't say I wanted it. I had a fatalistic mentality, hanging back, hoping I'll get picked, which is why I find the research on showing up so helpful. Here are 3 fast facts. Number 1, the odds of a scientist writing a groundbreaking paper, defined as the number of citations in other works, are directly correlated to how many papers the scientist has written, not to how smart the scientist is. Number 2, over 50% of a blog's page views typically come after the first day of publication. The greater the content base, the more traffic, because people are reading new and old posts. Unlike paid marketing, content marketing, as Vala Afshar sitting over here knows, has a cumulative and compounding effect. And number 3, once a startup reaches the final round of a pitch competition, there is no statistical difference between the returns of the finalists and the actual winners. We all think about winning, but it's the showing up that counts. Happily, we get lots of chances. I just had one of those chances. I'm putting myself out there more vigorously, raising my hand, not hanging back. Will I get my dream? I don't know. Showing up doesn't mean we can control the outcome. Sarah Ban-Breathnock said, when we use expectations to measure our dream's success, we tie stones around our soul. Dreams may call for a leap of faith, but they set our soul soaring. When we dream, we check our expectations at the door and we live into the moment. Sometimes we'll get what we want. Sometimes we won't get the outcome we hoped for, but nonetheless good. There are no regrets when we show up to ourselves and take our places in the universe. Dreaming is at the heart of disruption. Whether disrupting an industry or your personal status quo, in order to make that terrifying leap from one learning curve to the next, we must dream. The good news is, the thrilling news is, that the causal mechanism for achieving our dreams is showing up. Suit up, and your dreams will too. And to that, I say yes. Thank you.